Hello and welcome to a surprise addition to the betting diary where there is a lot of new news to get through, and starting with the main one, I guess, is that I'm going to be starting my tennis tipping again. I know it's only been a short length of time since I announced to everyone that the situation I was in financially and the difficulties that I was facing and how that was affecting my tips, and there's absolutely no doubt at all that I needed a break, and I really didn't know what was going to happen next, whether I'd be able to sort my situation out. So I felt it was only fair to, offer some sort of cancellation because or some sort of compensation, because with that uncertainty and with that sense of not having any closure or idea of what's to come, it seems just unfair to string it out. So I wanted to sort of come up with some sort of strategy relating to that. But a month is a short time, but it's also a long time in terms of it gives you, once you've sort of stopped, once I stopped tennis betting, and had a break for a while, like I haven't really been betting for the last 2 months, so to speak. It gives you plenty of time to reflect, to understand what might have gone wrong, what you could have done differently, and I feel that there are many reasons as to why I feel that I can make things work again. And so I'll just kind of fundamentally go through my current situation and talk through my ideas for what I want to do with my tennis going forward, and then everyone's sort of like entitled to have their opinion and let me know what they think. But essentially, like, financially, I'm now in a situation where I'm secure. I've got like some part-time work which is going to cover living costs, but this whole situation has just made me realize how much I need to prioritize where I'm spending my time, and how I want to go about approaching each tennis week, and just making my whole process a lot more streamlined and a lot more efficient. Basically, I feel that there's a business concept I heard of recently, which is the 80-20 rule, where you get 80% of your results from 20% of the effort. And I genuinely think that is something that I truly believe can be applied to many circumstances and many people's situation. And I certainly think there was so much excess time that I had wasted in the past through, I don't want to say complacency, but you just get into bad habits. I got into the bad habit of being on tennis Twitter too much, reading too many write-ups of other tipsters, spending too much time like looking at odds and how the odds are changing and how I wanted to send bets themselves. And all of this kind of stuff adds up, and I was getting to a point where I wasn't spending my time on the right things, which is watching the tennis, and just like completely objectively my own personal opinion is exactly what I'm thinking of the tennis. I just feel like my process was becoming too clouded. There wasn't enough objectivity. So what I'm really now focusing on, what the great thing about a break of a month or two is, it does allow you to break old habits. It you cut out what you're doing completely. So it's far easier to change routines. So I'm not following any of the tennis guys on Twitter anymore. Like, it's not a personal thing, but I'm not going to be looking for feedback on what anyone else is doing with their bets. And for example, I'm just going to be focused entirely on what I need to do to make profitable bets. I'm going to be focusing entirely on ATP to begin with. I might sort of bring WTA into it on a far smaller scale. But I'm going to be focusing on ATP, focusing on the big events essentially. Like I might still follow certain smaller events, but more so only if they've got niche betting conditions such as altitude or motivation is guaranteed. So I'm really going to sort of make sure that I'm spending time where I actually feel like there could be value. I'm going to be like just gonna go, I've got a sort of a criteria, so of things to talk about in terms of it. So I want to really, like, the great thing about this year and the deep dives is that I did get a lot of data on where I was strong, where I wasn't. I don't think I necessarily applied it very well, and I think my headspace wasn't, I wasn't with the best mindset for the aforementioned reasons. So I think there are now takeaways that I'm going to use strategically as well. So for example, round one, I'm really gonna completely change focus. My focus now is going to be on round one. I think one of the best angles for round one is just looking at certain players that are performed below expectation in the last tournament or the last two tournaments. A good example this week is Holger Rune. Rune, like, he's a top 5 player at his, or top 10 player at the minimum at his very best, but he had an injury in July where he didn't perform in the Hopman Cup, had a poor match against Giron last week at Toronto. And then in these situations, as the market, like I've always noticed, they don't adapt quickly enough to bad short-term form, in my opinion. There are other players, Oga, Aliassime, etc., that are the same, and you just oppose them in those situations where they're not match sharp, but the market's still giving them too much respect because of their name or because of the perception that they'll get better. So, for example, I had a personal bet on McDonald at 2.5 yesterday. It was Rune's first match of the week, but I felt very comfortable taking it just because there was far more room for margin on value on McDonald than there was on Rune getting back to a good level. So that's what I'm going to be, the reason I went through that example is it's a good one of illustrating what I'm going to be focusing on that in the first rounds of tennis tournaments from now on. I'm not going to be looking at trying to overcomplicate it. It's going to be very specific, form based on previous few weeks. If it hits that criteria and you've got a player that can, that can take advantage of the player that you want to oppose, then you bet it. And generally it's going to be higher odds. I'm not going to be betting against out of form players who are already being priced at 3.0, for example. It's the kind of favourites that get priced at 1.33 on name, but from 6 months ago, and taking them on. So yeah, and then as the tournaments develop, the more I'll watch, and the more I'll get an idea of form generally. And we've covered it in my deep dives before. My strength is when I've seen players 2-3 times, and once I've done that, my ROI is very high consistently, for ATP especially. So yeah, that's going to be my main focus, sort of have a very targeted angle for the early round, and then sort of focus entirely on ATP is going to massively help with the time management, with not wasting a lot of, I feel like with WTA I wasted a lot of mental energy as well. It wasn't just the time analysing bets and finding bets. It was I feel with WTA you get more random performances, as I have talked about this before, but what it does do is it's a bit more demoralising when you just get a player that doesn't show up, or there's more inconsistency and variation, whereas when I watch ATP, that consistency is there. If you read the matches right, you will make profit. There's just no I am just very sure that if I bet well on ATP, I'm gonna, extract value. The key is just in the mindset and making sure that my process is right, really. So yeah, like it will be one of those where the later into the week there'll be less matches, but the bets, there could be more bets. Also, just generally, I'm going to focus on quite defined criteria in terms of what I want to bet on. I'm not going to be taking, I feel like I've really, this week, I've had 4 bets. I had Shevchenko against Sonego, which lost, but I've had 3 underdog winners at 2.3, 2.7, and 2.5, which were all just good angles to attack. And I just feel fundamentally like I feel like I'll get the balance more better now that I'm cutting, like it's all about cutting out the fat, so to speak, or in my whole process, like cutting all the stuff that I don't need, focusing entirely on what I do need. And like that's where what I'm thinking. I've had plenty of time to reflect and evaluate on the past few months, and I never stopped betting or tipping for the idea of thinking that, I had lost my edge. It was more, personal circumstances combined with the lack of betting form, and just having to turn that all around, like on the spot, that does become overwhelming. So I think now, I've got that time and sense of way of creating that structure again. And just I don't want to get carried away. I don't want to set any kind of high expectations too quick, because I think I have been at fault of that in the past, of jumping ahead of the gun and when the results weren't good. So I just want to see how it goes. But I've got this real kind of quiet optimism, if I can put it that way, that and sense of steelness and determination to get this right. I think fundamentally it's this whole period has made me understand and appreciate what a kind of privilege it is to be doing work which you do enjoy and you're passionate about, and I really want to make that count. Okay, in terms of the bot service itself and how I'm going to run that, it's going to be the same as before, in terms of if you've already got credits and you have been following. If obviously I might have transferred some and I might not have taken them away yet, I'd do that whole process first. But once that's done, I'll just tip on the bot as before, and I'll also be running a monthly subscription model alongside it, like either through Tipster and maybe on Telegram as well, just because, like, from a cash flow perspective, like, if being honest, it is very helpful to have that consistent cash flow coming in, and it just gives me that extra incentive in terms of my financial benefit to always know that every bet counts, if that makes sense. So I will be running the bot service and still, and everyone can kind of pick up from where they left off if they want to. And I'm going to be, probably on Tipster and Telegram, charging a certain rate, maybe £50 a month, for example, when that restarts. That being said, I'm not going to go back to premium straight away, or potentially not at all, unless I feel like my betting over the next few weeks justifies it. I really want to see that I'm betting well and betting in form again before I commit to saying let's try premium again and see how that goes. So how it's going to work is I'll link everyone on Telegram and Twitter, and I'll just post on those platforms any free bets that I might have at the moment. So that's the news. yeah, I realise that it's all a bit strange because it's a really quick turnaround, and obviously, you know, that it is probably going to be a bit weird just based on how I've interacted with certain subscribers, that there's a sense of surprise, and I completely get that. But from a personal perspective, I see no real reason to delay if my mindset's in a good place and I feel like I'm capable of doing things again and making profit from betting. Then there's really no reason to not jump back into it. So yeah, and ultimately, if I don't profit on the bot, for example, I'm not going to make money from anyone, so it's still fair in that sense as well. So yeah, I think that's all I want to cover in relation to my own tennis. That being said, there's going to be another video to come because we are going to change a fair number of things with the bot in terms of the incentive structure. It's best to just explain that in another video about how the bot services might run in the future and changes that have been going to be implemented at present day as well. So yeah, feel free to check that out if you're following bot services generally and my own. Yeah, I think that's it. I also just want to say that if I do, I might start doing more videos again, but if I do, I'm gonna start segmenting them a bit more like I am today, with separate videos for separate topics, because it's probably just going to get a bit messy if I'm focusing on lots of different kind of components of different services, etc. So yeah, like hopefully that makes things a bit easier to comprehend as well. So yeah, cheers guys, and yeah, another video to come fairly soon.